Hello, my name is Dr. Ayelet Connell-Mateo. Today we're going to be talking about how to eat a healthy diet, but still make room for sweets. Most of us know by now that refined sugars are very unhealthy. In fact, the number of kids in our country diagnosed with diabetes, prediabetes, and obesity is climbing to really high levels. Eventually, we'll reach a tipping point. We can already see that many food companies are starting to remove artificial sweeteners from their products. There is no question that it is better to avoid toxic artificial sweeteners. But what about other types of sugar? While sugar is definitely a culprit in disease and illness, and generally lack of health, we've seen evidence time and time again with hundreds of clients over the years that removing artificial and refined sugar can improve one's health greatly. But we also know that avoiding sweet foods entirely is impossible for most of us, and also not necessary. Certainly for those of us that are dealing with disease and illness and inflammatory conditions, it is really important to be more rigid in our food choices and avoid refined sugars entirely. But there are definitely great substitutes that can satiate our sweet cravings. If you're reading labels for ingredients, the best added sweeteners would be natural ones that are less processed, like raw honey, pure maple syrup, stevia, coconut sugar. Even molasses has a lot of great health benefits. It's rich in minerals like iron. The key is to avoid refined added sugars like corn syrup or white sugar, turbinado sugar, brown sugar, Splenda, and NutraSweet. Even just high fructose corn syrup, which is very processed. If you're baking and the recipe calls for 1 cup of sugar, you can easily substitute with another dry sweetener, cup for cup, like coconut sugar. But very likely you don't need to include as much sweetener. So often recipes are created to be excessively sweet. Try experimenting with different amounts. Maybe add 1/2 cup or 2/3 of a cup of coconut sugar in place of 1 cup of white sugar and see how it comes out. As long as you're not trying to create a perfect French pastry, the outcome should still come out delicious. You can also substitute sugar for a liquid sweetener like maple syrup by cutting the other liquid ingredients in the recipe. So for example, if the recipe calls for 1 cup of sugar and 1/2 cup of milk, you can easily substitute 1/2 cup of maple syrup and maybe reduce the milk or milk substitute by about half. You can also use applesauce or banana or some other type of fruit puree to sweeten the product. Sometimes you can create some nice depth of flavor by adding pureed pumpkin or sweet potato baby food to a baked good. This allows you to reduce the added natural sweetener even further. Once you take the pressure out of baking, it can be fun, really fun to explore different substitutions. If a goal of yours is to lose weight, then considering natural sugars in addition to processed is important as well. There is a measurement tool that is called the glycemic index. Essentially, this tool rates how quickly our blood sugar spikes in response to certain foods. As you can guess, certain foods that often are higher in carbohydrates, like sugar and breads, pastas, white potatoes, they tend to be really high in the glycemic index. This means that when we eat these foods, our blood sugar is spiked quicker than when we eat foods that are lower on the glycemic index, like pears and berries or most vegetables. Also, when a particular food is more fiber, it helps to reduce the glycemic index as well. This is why whole fruit is always optimal to fruit juice, because fruit juice doesn't have any fiber, so it functions in the body like pure sugar for the most part. If we're wanting to lose weight, it's important to limit our fruit to 1 or 2 per day, and try to limit our particular fruit choices to lower glycemic fruits like berries, pears, and apples. But this doesn't mean avoiding them completely. Whole fruit actually has many health benefits, including the fiber they contain, as well as many important enzymes that can help us digest our food. And remember that phytonutrients, the nutrients that come from colorful fruits and vegetables, are very important in our diet for a variety of health reasons. The healthiest strategy to maintain long-term success in eating healthy is moderation. Certainly avoiding and limiting our intake of foods that contribute to disease and illness, like added refined sugars and artificial sweeteners, that's important. But having some naturally sweetened foods can be very healthy for us when eaten in moderation. Sometimes we need to take a holiday to create a clean slate. Many people have found that by eliminating all fruit and all artificial, refined, and natural sugars from their diet completely for a 2 to 4 week period has been very helpful in curbing their regular cravings. The first week or two of these types of elimination diets are always a little more challenging, but the end result is fantastic because then we have an easier time enjoying these naturally sweetened treats in moderation without our brain getting in the way as much with cravings. I know for myself, I love a little sweet from time to time. One of my favorite treats is made by a company called Heavenly Organics. It even sounds heavenly. Essentially, it's just 3 ingredients: a patty of raw honey covered in unsweetened chocolate and mint oil. They come in small sizes and you can order them online. I love chocolate, but I find that when I have refined sugar on a regular basis, I feel symptomatic. By avoiding sugars for a period of time, it can also be helpful to see what symptoms you experience that may be related to the intake of sugar. It's sometimes hard to make these correlations and associations without completely avoiding a certain food because you may not associate sugar, for example, with canker sores or joint pain or headaches. But in fact, these are only a few examples of some interesting potential side effects of excessive sugar in our diet. So to end this video session, I'd like to remind you that eating healthy may feel overwhelming in the beginning. But if you consider the long-term benefits and consider yourself committed for the long haul, know that as you continue the journey of eating in this way, it will get easier every day. At a certain point, we all hit that place where we've had enough of feeling crummy. It's in this place that some real healing can begin. Thank you so much for joining me in this conversation on healthy eating, and remember, keep it simple.